Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. Everything's working and we have plenty of people getting online, and I'm sure more will join as we go through. So I am going to kill my my video. I think it'll help us better focus on the presentation and not necessarily my face. So what we're going to do is we're going to be going over programming today. That's what we're going to be talking about a little bit more than normal, because we've mentioned our process in previous webinars, but I want to talk about it a little bit more, because what everyone's really looking for out of these webinars more than anything else is which track should I be training on? You know, given my goals, given what I like to do, which track should I be training on? And that's why I always give the track briefs at the end of the webinar, and those help you to some degree, but I want to give a bigger picture today also of just how things are broken down a little bit more. So that's what you can expect today on the webinar. Shouldn't take too long, because I'm going to go through these things kind of fast. So let me get going here. So I'm going to go updates quickly. We always spend a lot of time on the updates. I'm going to try and go through them a little bit faster. If you do have any questions from anything that's mentioned about the updates, please just put it in the chat or the Q&A section. I think the Q&A section is a preference from the team, because most of the team is here and they will be here to answer questions. And I will also answer questions at the end for anything that might be programming related or GGA in general. So let's get into it. Here's the team. Everybody on the team. If you listen to the podcast, you should be familiar with most everyone here. Trampus is on today. Marco, I don't think he's on, but part of the team. VD, I don't think is on as well. But Ashley, Kyle, Joe, all here. And I am here, obviously. So this is the team. And Kyle, Joe, and Ashley will also be able to answer your questions if you have any questions. So again, put that in the Q&A section and they will be able to help you out. All right. I want to hit on this real fast. Submitting your Garage Gym tour. So if you haven't seen this, you can go to the Garage Gym Athlete YouTube channel. I think a lot of you have seen this at this point. We've published, I don't even know what it is, like 30 or 40 garage gym tours of your garage gyms. And it's really cool. It's been really cool to see different setups. Some people who are absolute minimalists and don't have a lot, to people who've gone all out and have the craziest garage gyms. Really cool. And it's all helpful for the community. And we would love more if you guys are willing. So you can go to garagegymathlete.com/tour and it'll walk you through the process. It's pretty simple. You're just going to shoot a video with your iPhone. We don't have to see your face. If you don't want to show your face, that's fine. You know, but if you want to, that's fine as well. Pretty simple stuff. But we do give you some free merch for submitting your tour once it is published. So a lot of people are snagging Garage Gym Athlete banners, shirts, hoodies, all sorts of different stuff for submitting their garage gym for a couple of minutes worth of their time to submit their video. So go submit your video. We would love to see some more garage gym tours if you guys are willing. All right, podcast. If anybody is here for some reason doesn't know about the podcast, go subscribe and review. If you're already listening, that's awesome. But make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you leave us that 5-star review and positive comment if you are enjoying the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. We put a lot of work into the podcast and would love to hear your feedback and, you know, get any new ideas you might have. We talk about Garage Gym Athlete problems. We cover studies. We go over all sorts of stuff, trying to keep it interesting for you guys. So 5-star review, positive comment helps a lot on your podcast player. We're also doing it on YouTube as well. If I know a lot of people are watching on YouTube, similar format to this right here, but you can see our faces. So subscribe and review to the podcast. We'd really appreciate it. All right, Fit Week is this week. And I've been seeing a lot of the posts, a lot of PRs and people going through it. So just a quick recap of Fit Week. If you are posting your PRs in the group, then you are eligible for the black PR shirt or the red PR shirt, given how many PRs you hit within the cycle, whether that be 1 or 5. You do need to submit those. And it is in the documents and links section. And there has been some confusion about this. If you hit a PR, we don't proactively reach out to you with a link or with or just like automatically ship you a shirt because we saw it. Because to be honest, when you sign up for Garage Gym Athlete, we don't ask for a shipping address or anything like that. And so you have to let us know. We need that information to be able to even actually send you a shirt. I wish it were that cool and that automated, but it's not. So you do need to submit that. And then real quick on the Daily Over Decades Challenge, I just want to hear from the people we have attending right now, who is still in the Daily Over Decades Challenge, who's still holding strong at some level of the 300 or the 200. You can put in the chat, put 300, 0.3 or 200.1 or 200.2, whatever you're holding strong to. I want to see how people are doing within the community. 300.3, 200.3. That's awesome. Chris got 300.3, Zach 200.3, Josh 200.3. That's awesome. You guys are crushing it. And, it's just really, really cool to see. This is by far my favorite challenge that I've ever done. Personally, I mean that as in like something I've been doing. I've found it very challenging, but also very rewarding. And then it's been awesome as a community to see other people doing it as well. So if you're new here at all and confused about what I am talking about, go to dailyoverdecades.com. That's just going to take you to a separate portion of the Garage Gym Athlete website, and you will be able to see exactly what this challenge is. I have it on the screen. This is a 300 challenge, and I'll flip to the 200 challenge as well. But we are giving away, some people are motivated by the rower. We're giving away the prizes that we have. But if you're just now starting, you would no longer be eligible for the prizes because we had the cutoff towards the beginning of the year for people getting on-ramped, onboarded. But that doesn't mean don't do the challenge. I think this might be a challenge we do every year, but I think starting at any point in time is well worth it just for your own sake. Okay. Just for your own sake, doing the 300 or 200. So fairly simple stuff. I'm not going to go in great detail. I did in the previous webinar when we announced it. Like I said, you can go over to dailyoverdecades.com if you want to really read about it and read about all the, special cases and things that you need to know, questions you might have. So that's the 300 and this is the 200 challenge. And would love to have anyone else who's not involved or who's newer to go ahead and take on the challenge for the rest of this year and then into, March of next year to fully close out your year. That's awesome to see how many people are doing it. Really cool. All right. I'm going to go over this fast too, because I've gone over it a lot, but Joe did want me to hit on it one more time. And Joe, if you have any clarifying points after I go through this, just throw it in the chat so everyone else can, know any clarifications that we might need additionally. But we do have a Garage Gym Athlete reward system. I've already kind of gone over some of it. So the black PR shirt, 1 video PR, 1 cycle. We send you the black PR shirt for free. Same with the red, but it's 5 video PRs in the Facebook group. The PR patch, 10 video PRs over lifetime, also free, has to be submitted. And so I think that we're getting to that now where people are actually eligible to submit. But that would be 10 different videos over the course of the lifetime of your Garage Gym Athlete account. So if you're in that boat, let us know. The Meet Yourself Mental Toughness Practitioner patch. This one is not free. It's paid. It's something that you can get. And we just occasionally drop it into the Meet Yourself Saturday page. And then it's like a little note inside the app and the programming where you can buy it. And we release it from time to time. It's the honor system. The Killing Comfort patch 80% over the cycle, strict rules. You have to get those green dots. You have to log the workouts, and then Comfort killed the ACE patch. You've done the Killing Comfort challenge. You've done it 5 different cycles. Okay. And very strict rules, also free. And we sent a ton of these out. I guess it would be towards the beginning of the year during the first cycle. We just sent so many of these patches out. A lot of people were eligible, a lot more than I thought would be, which is, again, awesome on the community. You guys are keeping consistency over 80% for 12 weeks is one thing, but doing that 5 different times is a completely different thing. So I think that's amazing to everyone who has this patch. That says something, and it's a really big deal. And if you do not have something, you feel like you missed something, go to that link right there that's on the screen. It's eo3.fit/GGA-rewards. And I'm saying it all just in case someone's listening only. But yeah, go through, submit the form there. If you feel like you're missing a reward or you missed something, you feel like you're eligible for something and didn't get it, let us know there. That's the best place to do it. All right, real quick, PR shirt. A lot of stuff you can find in the documents and links section inside of the app. So if you click more in the bottom right-hand corner of your app that we're using for Garage Gym Athlete, the Team Builder app, there's a lot of additional information there. And that's all I'm trying to point out right now. So you can submit your PR shirts there. We have the EO3 elements there, track changes, goals, sleep habits, substitutions, travel workouts, all sorts of different stuff inside of the documents and links section. And there's even more than I had in the screenshots. Just go check that out periodically. If we have cool stuff, that's typically where we're going to put it, just so every athlete has access to it. So go check out that documents and links section occasionally. All right, let's get to programming, because this is the bulk of what I wanted to talk about today. And so I'm going to go over, if you've been on the webinar before, you've seen or heard the basics of Garage Gym Athlete programming. And I'm going to go over that very briefly, just like 2 or 3 minutes here. And this is mainly for anybody who may be a new athlete, either listening to this after it's recorded, or someone who's on live right now who may want to hear it. But what we have, our training methodology, it is concurrent training. It's all concurrent training. We don't do anything specific. We're not strength only, not even the strength track. And I'm going to get into that, and the endure track is not only endurance training. We are concurrent training. That means we're going to have a blend of a lot of different modalities of fitness all put together, but not randomly put together, not just a mash of separate programs, like where you go take a mash of, part of a strength program that a powerlifter wrote, and then you take part of an endurance program that an endurance coach wrote, and then you smash them together and hope something good comes out of that. What normally comes out of that is injury, if you're wondering. And so we are very thought out concurrent training. And 2 other things that go within our programming are body geometry. So body geometry is the 4th week of programming every wave. So that 4th week is body geo, and body geo is like, you just think of it as balancing training. It's not easy, and no way, like it's more of a deload from what the normal programming is, but body geo does not mean easy. It just means we're going to be balancing the athlete. We're going to focus on different muscle contractions. We're going to focus on a lot of things that are going to keep you healthy and optimal. Is really all you need to know about body geometry. And you can kind of see how it works with the different supersets, and you start to get a good feel for it. But there's a lot of thought that goes into body geometry, even over the course of 12 months. There's a lot of programming behind that. And then lastly, and really the most important, are the EO3 elements. So you can access the EO3 elements in the app, documents and links. We have a lot of places for the EO3 elements. We even have a webinar on it. You have to be hitting the EO3 elements every single day. These are basic lifestyle factors that you need to focus on if you want to see results. It's the prerequisites to you seeing results in any fitness program, whether you would be following ours or someone else's. You have to have the EO3 elements dialed in. And so this is what it looks like when we get into training. EO3 elements should be done daily. We are doing concurrent training weeks 1 through 3. Body geometry is still concurrent training, but 1 through 3, it's like a focused, like the track briefs I'm about to get into. It goes over all of those things. But then that fourth week is body geo to balance you out. So that's the broad overview of garage gym athlete training. And a lot of you, like I said, have already seen or heard this before. But what I want to get into today, because we hit on it, is either the last webinar or the webinar before, and I felt like there was a lot more interest in it than I thought there would be. I feel like sometimes people don't want to know as much behind the scenes, but I'll get into it a little bit more with you guys on this specific webinar. So it's best to think of our training in 3 different categories. And these categories are probably going to be different than you think. And, you know, as I tease each one of these out and pull the thread a little bit more, you'll see that, you know, they're not, nothing as simple as it sounds. But when you go broad, it seems like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So first is strength, endurance, and then conditioning, or what we would call energy system training. And you're like, well, what's the difference between endurance and conditioning? You know, how do they differ? And that's kind of what I want to go over, and all of the things that we are looking at when we're programming. And then I want to break it down to how each track individually focuses on these things, kind of like in a theoretical basis. All right. So strength. Sorry, I had to get some water there. So strength, this is what you need to be thinking about. Here's the strength continuum. So we have strength, speed, strength, and speed. This is pretty common. A lot of people know this in the strength and conditioning world. They know about the strength continuum and the different ways to move through strength progressions. And so this is 4 different areas within strength that we focus on in our programming, more so on different tracks. Like one track might see a lot more of this than another track. And this is where you kind of need to start thinking about, okay, what's the best for me? What do I want to do? So with strength, just to explain each one of these in a little bit of detail. So strength is what most people think of when they hear strength training. You know, so strength training is just loading weight on a bar and lifting it. You know, not a lot more to it than that. You know, it's just simple strength training, getting stronger, super beneficial. Building muscle mass and maintaining strength throughout your lifetime is incredibly important. But then, you know, we like to go way beyond that. We like to really balance out a human being, because if all I wanted you to do was to be a healthy human being who did some good training, yeah, you could just lift some weights, do some basic stuff, go for a walk. But most people here listening or watching the webinar, I would say you're not interested in that. So you do want more. And that's why we go into these different continuums of each one of these areas. So strength speed is where you're still lifting a more moderate load, but now you're moving it with speed. So it's about as, you know, obvious as it sounds, but in practice, it looks like dynamic efforts for us. So if you think about, if you ever seen the programming doing 40% for 2 to 3 reps or something like that. And it's like, why on earth am I doing 40% for 2 to 3 reps? I could do so many more reps. And we'll typically brief you in the athlete briefs and have in the notes that this is a dynamic effort. We need you to focus more on your speed. So it's a moderate load and you are going to be moving it quickly. And this builds you up into a more explosive athlete, a more powerful athlete, which is going to make you a stronger, more well-rounded athlete. And then moving down that continuum to speed strength, it's kind of the inverse there. So you still have some sort of load that you're operating against, but it's more about the speed than it is the load at this point. So you can think of something like throwing a medicine ball, a wall ball shot, or actually just throwing it. A kettlebell swing could really fit into almost either one of these categories, just depending on the actual load itself. Anything with a kettlebell snatch could be this. So a lot of things like that would be speed strength. So we're focused more on the speed. There's still a load attached to it, but it's a different modality. And then lastly, we have speed. And speed is just moving as quickly as you possibly can. The purest form of speed would be an all-out sprint, 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, something along those lines where you are just actually moving your muscles as fast as you can. Contractions are happening very fast, and also a great way to develop power. And something that, to be honest, is neglected in a lot of training programs would be strength, speed, strength, and speed. A lot of programs have strength, but a lot of programs are missing the other 3. And so we are hitting on all of those. And you'll see when we get into our track briefs that we focus on them in different quantities, different tracks, focus on them different amounts and different styles. And sometimes we'll only focus on one over the other. And just so something that you should know. Now getting into endurance, probably not what you're thinking of, right? When I throw this on the screen, endurance is muscle endurance, strength endurance, power endurance, and then aerobic endurance. Okay. So when you first saw endurance on here, you were probably thinking, when people say strength and endurance or something like that, everyone's thinking like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna back squat and I'm gonna run. And that's not real. That's like, it's in there at the end of aerobic endurance, but that's not really what we're talking about when we talk about endurance. Okay. So there's muscle endurance, strength endurance, power endurance, aerobic endurance. So let's go over each one of those. So muscle endurance, going kind of picking up from where speed is, ending on the strength continuum and picking up muscular endurance. So muscular endurance can be localized muscular endurance, things like lunges. We'll do lunges for 7 minutes at a time sometimes in hard to kill track and other programming and other programming tracks. So that's more muscular endurance. Again, load not necessary unless you are a more advanced athlete. So it could just be a lot of repetitions. And typically a lot of repetitions without load is a great way to get a lot of blood into the surrounding area, work out your ligaments and tendons more so. And even if you just have a small amount of weight, like ankle weights or something like that, there's always a way to make muscular endurance slightly more challenging. Adding a vest, if you're more advanced athletes, to say, going back to the example of walking lunges, that's muscular endurance. Okay. Now moving to strength endurance, I think you guys will kind of catch on here how this starts to work, because it's similar to the strength continuum above. Strength endurance is going to be a lot of reps. So think about 20 rep back squats at low to moderate load, something like that, 10 rep, 15 rep. It's where you're getting outside of this localized muscular endurance, and you're getting to actually needing to maintain load and form longer than a typical strength duration. Typical strength duration is, 10 to 15 seconds. In all honesty, when you're lifting, that's about where you're at. That's also within the energy system that you'd want to be training in for strength, even power movements. And so that is strength endurance. So no, we're going outside time window wise of how long you're maintaining strength. So think about if you've ever had a bar on your back doing squats or lifting deadlifts, and you're doing that for 30 or 45 seconds, which is, 4 times longer than your typical back squat set or deadlift, you're going to feel it. It's going to be different. It's a different modality. It's a different system, and it just hits different, to put it in the simplest form. And so that is strength endurance. Now, power endurance is quite awful, to be honest. I'm not going to lie to you. Power endurance is pretty bad stuff. So it's anytime you're doing a power-based movement, but given the same strength endurance definition I just gave. So again, power, if we're talking about a snatch, that's a power-based movement, or a box jump, that's a power-based movement. And now if we do 1 to 5 reps of those, it's only going to last for a few seconds, not a big deal. But what if we move that snatch to a kettlebell snatch and we do 3 minutes worth of them? Okay. And that's something that we do in our EO3 fit test. And so you can find out real fast, power endurance is a whole different animal, works a different energy system. And we don't do it very often because, to be honest, it's not necessary to train in a high frequency. On hard to kill track, you'll see it once a month. And it's just a great way to maintain power over time. And so that is power endurance. And then lastly, aerobic endurance. So aerobic endurance, for my definition, this is moving outside of like textbook definitions, because we hit on aerobic endurance in the endurance section and then also the conditioning in their own ways. But the way I look at aerobic endurance is the ability to, in the same vein of strength endurance and power endurance, is to go outside the normal limits for what your aerobic endurance would hold. Okay. So if you are okay with like a 30-minute continuous run, say that's not too hard for you, that would be the same as like a back squat that is, 5 reps. Not that hard. I'm not saying it's not hard. It's just you're used to it, right? Now, if we push that aerobic endurance to 50 minutes, which is 20 minutes outside your comfort zone, that is what I mean for endurance in this continuum. And it's going to be different than when I'm talking about energy system training. So that's what I'm talking about here in aerobic endurance. And if you guys have any questions about this, please let me know. But that's what I mean. Aerobic endurance that's outside of what you as a person have a comfort level or a tolerance for. Now, conditioning. And this one opens up a whole can of worms. I could sit here and talk about these areas for an hour, but I'm not going to. All right, so we have alactic, lactic, and oxidative within conditioning. And these are different energy systems that we are targeting. So alactic, we call the gain zone. It's not a very long, bout of exercise or movement, 10 to 15 seconds, something like that. It can be accommodated or executed in the form of strength training or power training in those lower time domains. You need a good amount of rest to recover from it. It's without oxygen, so you're typically not getting through these metabolically demanding process, and so you're not as tired at the end of them. So just think about if you were to go do a 50-meter sprint or a 100-meter sprint in some cases, and you're not normally tired after those races. And you see this in professional athletes. Someone finishes a 100-meter race, and these explosive athletes, they're not the least bit tired afterwards. And why would they be tired for a 9-second effort? And that's the same for us. We just can't run 100 meters in 9 seconds. So maybe move that down to 50 meters or whatever it is for each one of us. But that is an energy system that we're training. It can be trained in a lot of different ways. The main way would be strength training. We also do this like on airdyne and sprinting. Lactic. Now you're getting to the glycolytic zone. This one's awful. Just like I said with power endurance, to be honest, a lot of these overlap. Like power endurance can be a lactic or glycolytic exercise. And so that is what we're training. And all of these in the energy system training models follow work to rest ratios. And I'll get into that in just one second. So lactic, super bad. It can be 90 seconds of activity, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I'm making arguments that it can go up to 5 to 7 minutes for some athletes before it switches over to oxidative, depending on your level of fitness. But that is lactic. So the really painful stuff makes you want to throw up, doesn't last that long, and you're going to need a ton of recovery from it. And that would be lactic. Oxidative is where aerobic endurance and oxidative are basically the same thing. Most anyone, would say that, but the reason I separate them out is because I kind of described to you aerobic endurance is where we're pushing outside of a continuous effort that you are accustomed to. Oxidative is when we're working here at Garage Mathlete. So oxidative is where we are working specific work to rest ratios. And that goes for the same with alactic, lactic, and oxidative. So each one of these have work to rest ratios that need to be followed for you to get the biggest benefit. And sometimes that's also where some of the confusion comes in from athletes. Because if you do 9 seconds worth of activity, this super explosive alactic effort, and then you don't have to, or you have to rest for a long time after that, you're resting, let's say a minute and a half after 10 seconds worth of activity, you're like, seems like overkill. And it is overkill, but we're trying to stay in a specific zone. Okay. We're trying to stay in a very specific zone. And this is different than other forms of training. For instance, a like CrossFit modality, it's a lot in that lactic, like a lot of it just staying in that glycolytic zone, maybe touching oxidative, not a lot of rest periods worked into. And so it starts to get unbalanced, even from an energy system training perspective. And so oxidative, jumping back to that, is it's like aerobic endurance, but think of 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or 1 mile on, rest, 1 to 1. So if it took you 7 minutes to run that mile, rest 7 minutes before you do it again. That's how we train and separate aerobic endurance from oxidative. They're just a little bit more strategic in nature. All right, now we have mixed modal aerobic and mixed modal anaerobic. And this is kind of where, we start to dive into just mixed modality training and all that is. Some people look at it as more CrossFit style, and that's true, but we typically have this work to rest ratio component in our mixed modal aerobic and mixed modal anaerobic if they are needed. And so mixed modal would just mean you're doing multiple different things. So mixed modal aerobic, you could be, you could run 400 meters, come back, do some sandbag cleans, and then do some pull-ups, something like that, like 3 different activities, different modalities. And then, but doing that with an aerobic time stamp. So it'd be like, okay, do this for 3 minutes, rest for 3 minutes, to keep that in the aerobic zone. And then same exact thing for mixed modal and aerobic. The only thing that changes is how long you're working and how long you're resting. So you're working a lot less, more powerful in nature, and then you're going to be resting a lot more. So that is Garage Gym Athlete training in all of the different areas that we hit. Okay, this is what we teach our coaches internally. This is what we teach when we certify our coaches. These are the different areas that we're hitting. But how we hit them and in which tracks they're hit is what you guys are probably here for most. Okay, and so this is how I'm going to kind of break it down for you to see what you might be more interested in. Now, I've just spent a lot of time explaining our strength continuum, the endurance continuum, and conditioning continuum. And what I would like for you to start thinking about right now is, of all the information I just gave, which one sounds the most fun for you? Which one sounds like that's an area I want to improve more of? I would like to focus more on that thing. And I know that this goes outside of, look, I just want, I just want to look good naked. And we have a track for that, right? But if you are beyond that point and you are looking more for performance and looking to do specific things in the gym as opposed to look a certain way, then that's what I want you to be thinking about. So this would be the strength track. So we have, it's predominantly strength work, right? Based on the strength continuum that I was talking about. And it does have endurance in there as the second most, and then conditioning the least. Now, going back to endurance, remember, you have to be thinking about endurance in the terms that I just gave. So muscle endurance, strength endurance, power endurance, aerobic endurance being the last thing. So muscular endurance, strength endurance, power endurance would be the main things that you'd be hitting on the strength track. That's why you still see this large endurance chart here, is because there's a lot more endurance stuff in nature on the strength track, muscular endurance, power endurance. And then there's a lot of strength work, especially within that strength continuum. And then there is always going to be a conditioning element. Doesn't matter which track you're on. So that's the strength track. Now the endure track is going to have a lot more conditioning, right? Specifically to the energy system training. And so the energy system that I was just talking about, the mixed modality training, the work to rest ratios with intervals, that you're going to see a lot more of that in the endure track. It's super targeted there. And then you see strength and endurance. There's a lot of that as well, but within the strength continuum of actually like heavy loads, working for speed, dynamic efforts, you see a little bit less of that on the endure track. And you do see more of the muscular endurance, power endurance, things like that on the endure track. So again, super targeted on the conditioning. Second place would be in working through the endurance continuum. And then lastly would be the strength continuum. Next, we have the shred track, and it's going to be a lot of strength, but working through the strength continuum in different ways than the strength track. And I think that's the biggest thing to note is if we go back to the slide where we're talking about strength, you're going to be hitting these in different areas. Okay. It might not be as focused on the first part of the strength continuum, which is just straight strength. It might be speed, strength, and strength, speed, and getting through that. And then endurance, working through what would honestly be in the endurance continuum on the shred track, a lot of hypertrophy work. So muscle growth type activities. And that's what we're doing a lot on the shred track. And then conditioning, those targeted conditioning metrics on the shred track. So working through those energy systems. And so that's what the shred track would look like. Now, the hard to kill track is our most balanced track. And that's what I always want everyone to know. So it's almost going to be equal thirds of conditioning, targeting different energy system training, strength, working through the strength continuum, and endurance, working through that endurance continuum. The hard to kill track is the only track that hits all 13 of those areas that I went over, all 13 of them, every single 30 days. Okay. Every 30 days, we're hitting every single one of those areas. And for some of you, that sounds awesome and you want to be on the hard to kill track. And for some of you, that should not sound awesome because you might have a specific goal. Okay. You might want to run a faster 5K, or you might want to lift a certain amount of weight. Hard to kill is for the generalist who wants to be pretty good at everything, but no real specific, I need to be able to do X, Y, or Z, or I am chasing this specific goal. If you're okay with just doing fitness and being really well-rounded, Hard to Kill is a place to be, but you want to be there for a long time and commit to it on the Hard to Kill track, because the other tracks do not hit every single 13 areas every 30 days. They probably hit every 13 areas closer to every 12 weeks, so every 3 months. And here's just a snapshot of that, the Endure track, Shred track, Strength track, and Hard to Kill. Now we do have the 3-block track, which 100% mimics the Hard to Kill track. And then also the same with our no gear track. So I'm not missing any tracks here. These are the 4 main areas that we're hitting on. And if you guys do have any questions about these tracks, let me know. But we will get into the track briefs real quick, and then we can go from there. All right, so this is from VD, the Shred track. We're going to be focusing on hypertrophy and strength in a body geometry fashion. And so that is what we are going to be doing on the Shred track this cycle. I am going to read it. I always read it because this is also gets published as a podcast episode, and I want anybody who might be listening who doesn't have the visuals to go check it out. And if you have been listening without the visuals, I've been doing my best to make sure that everything's up to date, but there were some pretty cool graphics. If you want to go check it out on YouTube, it'll be published there, or catch the replay of the webinar. All right. So the overview, cycle 2 of Shred in 2022 picks up where we left off after cycle 1, but this doesn't mean you can't join us. The goal of the Shred track is body composition. Expect to see some improvements in strength and mobility, but it isn't the primary objective. The programming will include upper body push and pull movements, lower body squat and hinge movements, extended sets of core training, and some days pre-fatigue circuits for your hypertrophy sets. Leveraging supersets and trisets to accomplish the weightlifting provides increased opportunity for fat burning. This is the standalone feature of the Shred track. For your conditioning, we will alternate between weeks of lower intensity, interval weight training, and longer metcons where you will need to grind it out. What does it look like? You'll be using a kettlebell and or dumbbell frequently to perform accessory and body geometry exercises. A pull-up bar, bench, and barbell are a must. Bands also see a lot of use. Rings are highly preferred, and access to a rower or Airdyne is encouraged, although not required. You can always run if needed. So that is the Shred track. So I've kind of given you the overview of what you can expect from a kind of in the weeds, nerdy approach to programming. And then also we can kind of give you this track brief overview so you know what your next 12 weeks would look like if you follow the Shred track. Now moving on, same for the Endure track. The goal will be endurance plus interval training. The Endure track will be concentrating on long and short sessions while maintaining intensity and building resiliency. Get ready to sweat. The strength work for this cycle will be focused on 1-to-1 work to rest ratio sessions aimed to build on the foundation established on the previous cycle and maintain a solid muscle tone needed to perform well in endurance training events and life. What does it look like? This track will make use of different tools and energy systems, from body weight movements and sample aerobic work to more complex work requiring a rucksack, backpack, sandbag, kettlebell or dumbbell, barbell and plates, a vest if available, bands, and long and short metabolic conditioning training sessions. All exercise will have substitutions for non-regular equipment. So that is the Endure track. Again, be thinking of the nerdy, sciencey version I gave you, plus this, and think about where you want to be. What do you want to be doing in the training? What will you have the most fun performing? Now, the strength track, Joe is, and I should probably mention that just in case no one, you guys didn't know, VD programs a Shred track, Marco programs the Endure track, Joe programs a strength track, which I think, a lot of people are on the strength track, or at least we hear a lot about the strength track these days. So I think Joe is really crushing it with all the people on the strength track. So he's going to be focusing on strength, speed, plus power endurance. So moving from high volume to speed and dynamic effort volume this cycle. Strength portions will be dynamic efforts with clusters and EMOMs. Accessory work is where a lot of the overall volume will come in, and power will be a common theme throughout. Conditioning will be centered around speed, and yes, we will still carry and lift heavy things. So Joe keeps it short and sweet, but I mean the strength track's been going awesome. Ashley just put in the chat that strength track rocks, and she hit some lifetime PRs, I think, over this past Fit Week, if I'm not wrong there. So really doing well for a lot of people. If you're interested in strength specifically, definitely check out the strength track. Hard to kill track. This is what I program. And I always start with the same sentence, no matter what. I said this cycle will continue in the H2K fashion and hit every energy system and 13 areas of training we focus on every 30-day wave. I kind of already let you know that in this presentation. But the next cycle is being deemed as general specificity, meaning we will hit many areas of training, but they will be more periodized than H2K athletes are accustomed to. And so what I'm letting people know is you might see a little bit more week to week linear periodization, just meaning if Tuesday had sprint intervals, this Tuesday, the next Tuesday might have sprint intervals as well. It'd be in a different, harder format to improve you in that one specific area. And so that is how it's going to start with the first wave and then continue. And so there's going to be a lot of building. We're still hitting all the different areas, but I am trying to improve athletes in some very specific areas and increase as much as we can across the 13 areas in the next 12 weeks. So we're going to be doing intentional heart rate zone work and building a lot of fun heart rate zone stuff that we haven't done before on the Hard to Kill track. So a heart rate monitor would be suggested, especially for one of the days per week where there's a lot of heart rate tracking. So if you do have a heart rate zone or heart rate monitor, great. If you don't, I would suggest getting one if you really want to get the most out of your training. Now, you don't have to have a heart rate monitor. It just makes it more accurate. We always give ways in the athlete briefs, if you don't have a heart rate monitor, how to tackle the training, whether that be, for like zone 2, we recommend conversational pace or nasal only breathing pace, something like that. If you were on Hard to Kill track last cycle, we are increasing the weights. So we were doing a little bit more muscular endurance, not as heavy, a little bit more dynamic and explosive work. We're kind of moving away from that. So we'll be doing heavier strength and moderate volume. Okay. So not high volume, but it will be moderate. And the sets get a lot heavier. Okay. And then the volume increases week to week, something to know. If you are looking to get a little bit stronger, Hard to Kill track will definitely do that for you this cycle. There'll be a lot of speed and press work to break plateaus in these areas. So I specifically want to get people faster. And I also want people to get stronger in the press. And I know that's very specific, but I focus on this occasionally because press is the hardest after you kind of max it out. And this is what happens with most athletes. And this is to help you realize you're not alone. Okay. Press is hard to continually increase because we can increase it really fast. And then it almost dead stops for a lot of people. And it's because you max out your pressing strength relatively fast. And a lot of people that might be around body weight, something like that. But then it gets hard to continually increase your press or to even increase your press 5 pounds. It can take a long time to even get that extra 5 pounds on the press. And I think a lot of people get hung up mentally with this because they're comparing it to their squat and deadlift, where 5 pounds is a fraction of what they're lifting. But when you're only lifting 115 pounds on the press to add 5 pounds, that's a lot bigger percentage of your overall. Okay. So anyway, it is easy to get plateaued in your pressing strength. We're going to be doing a lot more pressing work, unilateral stuff. This is one way that you really break through pressing PRs. You stop pressing with a barbell, because barbell, while it's great and you can have a heavy load, it is, if you are stalled out on your press due to lack of unilateral strength, meaning your right is stronger or your left is stronger, a barbell is just going to keep you within that same scenario and never fix it. So you got to get off the barbell and move to dumbbells or kettlebells eventually and get a lot more volume. So there's going to be a lot of volume, a lot of unilateral work, and you're going to get faster. So when I say faster, to what speed? I mean the actual speed within the strength continuum. So a faster human being. So whether that be a 400, a 1 mile, a 5K would probably where we'd be capping out at your speed. But within those 3 ranges, anywhere from a 400-meter sprint to a 5K race, you will get faster. That is what we're working on with specifics of speed. And like I said, working through breaking any pressing plateaus for any athletes who may be stuck there. All right. And then you'll never be bored week to week. And this is kind of one part I'm keeping a little bit, behind the scenes. I don't want to reveal too much, but there will be at least 1 to 2 sessions per week that are very challenging, will be very fun. Think of mixed modality training. And this is where Hard to Kill gets a lot of its love and hate, that love-hate relationship people have with it. Is I have cooked up some pretty fun Meet Yourself Tuesdays and things like that are going to be a lot of fun and work in that mixed modality zone of conditioning that I talked about on the webinar. And so that will be the Hard to Kill track. All right, so sample training, you can go check it out now. You can go to garagegymathlete.com/2020 and you can download the sample training. We will also be publishing this in 5 Line Friday, which will be getting sent out tomorrow. So 5 Line Friday will go out tomorrow as of recording this, and we'll send it out. We'll also put it in the Garage Gym Athlete group and everything else. Gym Athlete Podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Thanks for listening.